Hello and welcome to the Saturday night stream of the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. Let's get everything going here. How is the audio? Excellent. Okay. Okay, we are in Turkey. Now, as we get started, there's, yesterday I was talking about one of the most annoying things about current media coverage of Chile and the elections there, and how there's this idea that was started by some, scare pieces in the US media that supposedly Gabriel Boric, who is, like, fucking, a slightly less objectionable, well, actually significantly less objectionable Joe Biden-type figure, just a Keir Starmer sort of person, is a radical leftist student leader and all this crap, which, and it is literally something that was made up in the US media, and you don't hear anything of the sort in Chile because it would just, people would laugh. But I wanted to talk about the sort of thing that ought to be getting some fucking attention, in terms of Chile stories. Because, as I've said a couple of times, once in a while, you have this situation where it's like, when people are fucking dying in Chile, it's crickets. You don't hear anything. And unfortunately, that's also true of the English language left media, who really ought to be covering this stuff. But, yeah, you just don't see anything about it. So I just want to talk about one case, because it was back in the news again in Chile just recently. See, there have been various protests outside what's called Little La Moneda, the sort of building attached to, if I remember correctly, the foreign ministry, where the president-elect, in this case Gabriel Boric, and his transition team get to do their, transitional activities and stuff. And so there have been various protests, mostly to do with releasing the thousands of political prisoners, which is a major demand at the moment that, again, ought to be. That doesn't help. That's just some kind of fast service. But, okay. So, the political prisoners was one, but there's also what is known in Chile as the Caso Kayser. Now, during the campaign, Boric had been happy to pose for, like, photo ops with the families of the victims in the Caso Kayser, which I'm going to talk about in detail. But ever since he got elected, he doesn't want to know them. And so they were out there protesting, and the plainclothes cops, the Policía de Investigación, also known in Chile as Los Raticuliao, actually opened fire on the fucking protest. And Boric, of course, he wasn't anywhere to be seen. But here's the story. And there are lots of cases like this, I want to be clear, from the past couple of years. This is just one that just happened to get a couple of reminder headlines in the past couple of days. See, in the first couple of weeks of the rebellion, when the military were out and they just go into town on people, there were a number of situations where you would have buildings like supermarkets, warehouses, a shopping center in one case, taken over by the military. Witnesses see the military taking control over it. They clear the place out, and not long thereafter there's a fire. And the place gets torched. And the official line is that the place was looted. Except all sorts of footage surfaces that actually the military were there the entire time, so if it was looted, it was done, so it happened under military supervision. Now, the thing is that after these fires, gradually bodies started to be found. And again, the official line, which was, oh, these people looted the place and then they died in a fire that they stupidly set while they were still inside the fucking building, and, you know, basically sort of NHI sort of explanation, no human involvement. And there was basically fuck all done to investigate this stuff. Well, one of those was a warehouse belonging to the Kayser company on the outskirts of Santiago. Where there was a fire and a number of bodies were found. And officially, again, the line was that they were looters and they had just died while setting a fire. Well, a lot of the families couldn't, when they finally identified the bodies and the families started to get involved, a lot of them couldn't make any sense out of that, because that didn't sound like their relatives who were found dead there. And in at least one case, with a middle-aged guy, family man, who was never in this part of town. It was miles away from any place that he would actually have a reason to go. Nobody in the family could explain why the hell he was there in the first place. And he was not the sort of guy who was going to go out and fucking have a bit of incendiary direct action. He just wasn't the type. And there was no reason for him to be in this area in the first place. He just went out one night, and nobody ever heard from him again until his body was found. So, you know, they contacted some human rights groups, some groups of forensic anthropologists and people, and an independent medical examiner, had a new post-mortem done. And in his case, and in a number of other cases, a number of facts started to come to light that really cast serious doubt. Hello, Phoenix. Yeah. AOC is on some things possibly to the left of Boric, though. Like, slightly. And only until Nancy Pelosi fucking tells her not to be. But, so they had independent autopsies done, independent postmortems, and nothing, and basically nothing remained of the official story of this. First of all, it turned out there had been no effort to investigate these scenes. All that had happened, forensic services had just sort of scooped up the bodies and buggered off. They had made no attempt to secure the scene, no attempt to secure evidence, no attempt to have a look around. Like, there was definitely material evidence that was just left there, including a bottle with holes in it that seemed to have been used to pour petrol as an accelerant on the scene. These people did not die in a fire. None of the signs of that were present. What was found in various cases, including this guy who had no reason to be anywhere near this building in the first place and would never have been looting anything, were indications they'd actually been shot, that they were dead before the fire was started. So these people, and there are lots of cases like this. This is the sort of horrific shit that the past couple of years have been in Chile, and it gets no coverage at all. So these people were demanding some kind of proper, independent, trustworthy inquiry into what happened to their loved ones, and Boric kind of was happy to posture with them to show that he was a guy who cared about human rights during the campaign, and he just ignored them after he got elected. But this stuff has been ignored completely by the foreign press and by the media, by, like, leftist media. People, we ought to be drawing huge amounts of attention to this internationally, because the military who are in the frame for doing this are trained and armed and supported back to the hilt by Washington. There is a U.S. military base in Chile right now. I forget the name of the place. But it was a huge controversy when it happened. A lot of people are unsurprisingly pissed off to have it there. especially when it turned out that they were using it as a training center for counterinsurgency techniques, which is exactly what's been going on for the past couple of years in Chile. So this is the shit that ought to be getting coverage, especially in left media, not this election bullshit that most of the population in Chile doesn't give a fuck about. And so I'm trying to get some. I've decided I'm going to try to get more attention to these things, at least use this stream to kind of mention some of it and bring it up. Meanwhile, apparently I seem to have said so many good things about Bad Empanada that he had to publish a shit video. So he's got one out now, which I'm not going to watch. I haven't watched it yet, but the name of it was already bad enough, saying that Caleb Maupin is not an asshole, which, again, the evidence that he is pretty fucking overwhelming, including in the recent Stop the Lies video that he put out, where you had a LaRoucheite, one of the spokesmodels of the Boogaloo Boys, and a couple other fashy fuckers, right in the video that he produced and he put out on his channel. But, yeah, so that was fucked up, but, we're gonna stick to the video we've been working on for the past couple of days. I still want to get to the part that I actually wanted to see of that video, to see what Xander Hole does about it. How is everybody tonight, by the way? We are someplace in Turkey, and I'm hoping there will be a road sign that tells us otherwise. See, there's an example of something where they ought to be blurring it out, and it didn't. That's a guy's name. They'll blur out the number plate, but that guy has his name right on the windscreen, and they didn't blur it. I mean, maybe he needs that. Maybe he'll end up needing an alibi. Zonguldak Muslu Jatalazu. Okay, I've never heard of any of those places. Not even sure if they're place names. My Turkish is not that good. But there's probably a railway station nearby. Bad Empanada's video title also says, "Oh, I don't speak most languages. There are roughly 8,000 languages and dialects of various kinds in the world. I don't even speak a small fraction of them. I speak enough Turkish to surprise people, but okay, barrier. Okay, there's a barrier and a control. Kazkoy. We are in. I think that says Kazkoy. That is the town name. Dur. Stop. Kazkoy. Okay, I've never heard of Kazkoy, but at least it's a fucking place name. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm gonna be releasing... You'll catch the rest of it if you want, when I'm gonna release that as a clip. I try to draw attention to that stuff when I can, because I have a lot of friends there who are... I'm constantly hearing fairly horrible shit in the past couple of years. I mean... It's like people I know who have been at it since the 80s when Pinochet was still running things. Okay, infrastructure looked pretty good, so I'm gonna guess it's probably near someplace. A major city, a suburb of a major city here. Though I have no idea, I've never heard of Kaskui. But I'm gonna do a clip, there's gonna be a clip of that. Like, friends of mine say that it is as bad, if not worse, as in the last decade of Pinochet, and the numbers bear that out. I mean, the monthly averages in terms of, like, torture and murder by the state is worse than Pinochet in the 1980s. I mean, the 70s were another story. Like, the worst of his shit was in the 70s, in the first couple of years. But, I mean, the 80s were still a fucking horrible decade in Chile, except that Lo Prisionero came out, and so at least they had good music to listen to. Fucking timeless band, Lo Prisionero. One of their songs has ended up being like the anthem of the rebellion. El baile de los que sobran. The dance of those who are surplus to requirements. Are we talking about Camila Vallejo? Because I can tell you all sorts of shit about Camila Vallejo. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's another example of the foreign media, like, appointing somebody a leader. First of all, you have to understand that the FECH, that is the student union of Chile's equivalent of Harvard or Oxbridge. That is a rich kids club. It is, and they always were very much the respect the process wing of the of the student movement. We're happy to sell out the, I'm just gonna guess at this point, sell out the working class secondary students who were really the absolute lifeline of that movement. I mean, one of the worst examples was, there was, during the 2011 end of the student movement, there was a policy that the university unions, including the FECH, including the had agreed to with the secondary students' unions, which were much more democratic and horizontal, like ACES, the Asamblea Coordinadora de Estudiantes Secundaria, the coordinating assembly of secondary students, who really bore the brunt of the movement and were the most radical, had the best thought-out proposals as well. So they said that they would not, either the entire movement is represented at the table when there are negotiations with the government, or nobody goes. That was the line. It was a point of unity. It was, you know, it was announced with much fanfare, and it was a correct position. Oh, well, I don't even know where the fuck this is yet, except I'm guessing it's the US. I haven't even been paying attention, to be honest, because I've been talking. But, yeah. Yellow lines, yeah, sort of scuffed infrastructure. Guessing it's the Midwestern U.S. But, yeah. So then Piñera, who was president then as well, invites only the university students, the elite university students, to the table. Without even offering any of the shit that was being demanded. Like, the main demand was free, quality, public education, secular as well. I mean, which is a huge thing. Because basically, Chile is just all charter schools all the time, and it is just a fucking racket. They call them their colegios particulares subvencionados, but it's the same thing. It's a private company gets to secretly, shadily profit off of a public school. Yeah, I mean, it's the U.S. taken to the nth degree, but with better sandwiches. Chilean sandwiches rock. I mean, they're not as good as Peruvian ones, which are just fucking heavenly. But they're good. Chacarero is an amazing thing. But so she sold them out completely. And there were a bunch of things, like that. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Well, apart from Swahili, which is one I'm trying to learn, I speak all of those. There's also Afrikaans, which is like Dutch spoken after the 5th pint. No verb conjugations, no fucking grammar, no grammatical gender, hardly even verb tense. But at the same time, a really interesting mix of vocabulary, because there are like Zulu words, there's Tswana words, there are Malay words, French, and then a lot of English, and the way it's often spoken in, for example, in Cape Town, in some, especially in working class areas, you can throw in about as much English as you want if you don't want to sound posh in Afrikaans, and it's just normal. Like, I'm reading right now these detective thriller novels by Deon Meyer that are in Afrikaans. And the thing about the thing about it is that there will be like the sentences are switched between Afrikaans and English constantly. Okay, yeah, this is like Midwestern U.S. God, fucking depressing. It could be Indiana. Yeah, it's depressing enough to be a drive through an interstate on Indiana. Well, except it's a two-laner. I know from Indiana. This just gives me that sort of sinking feeling. Oh well, if you go between Indiana and Cincinnati, there isn't a whole lot of corn. There's a lot of like soy fields and wheat and shit. And just boring things. Okay, yes, it is definitely the US. There's a sign, a speed limit sign, and it says speed limit and not maximum. When you see maximum on there, that means Canada. Mm. I was so busy talking about all this other stuff. Well, I mean, Vosh has reasonably good English. And his Spanish, I can tell you, his Spanish sucks shit. In fact, his Spanish just sounds like him making fun of a Spanish accent and not knowing what one sounds like. Hi, James, by the way. He's telling my sister about you. Oh, come on. Give me something here. There's not even a street name. Okay. This is... And it doesn't really look like we're ever going to get to a main street, so I'm going to just say... Southeast Indiana. South Carolina. Okay. I'm thinking Japan. But not certain. The lack of a proper verge seems Japanese. Yeah, you were right. Yeah, okay, and we got these mirrors. They love these mirrors on the intersections. Yeah, it says Churi. Yep, Japan. Oh, I will. Yeah, she was like, our family is so fucked. We should know our first cousins. Yeah, definitely Japan. Tomare, tomare. Yeah, I'll tell her. Arumisashi. Okay, it's an aluminium scrap business of some sort. Kyoiku Chosha, Midori-shi. Okay, there we go. We're in the city of Midori. Then the Department of Education is nearby, and I have no idea where the fuck Midori is. Lisa Karpova. Tiebilis. More link spam with a Russian name. Karpova. Wonder if she's a relative of Anatoly Karpov. Kompo-unso. General Shipping. Okay, some scuffed Japanese industrial estate. You can tell scuffed infrastructure in Japan because the paint is very slightly scuffed. That is the standard of scuffed in Japan. Arai... funeral home. 有限会社大成電機 electrical. Tea pit. Oh. Well, cats like to watch. God, I miss having a cat. Dramatic resort. I don't know if I want a dramatic resort. How'd you find my stream of all things? This is my name isn't really attached to this. I mean, by the way, there's if you were, I'm guessing you Googled me at some point, and if you Googled me at some point, you will have found a website. Oh, well, if you go back, there's a video clip I did where it's Vush doesn't know shit about Chile. Couple weeks ago. It is it's on my YouTube videos, and you can hear it, and it sucks. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yes, not only is she a TERF, but she actually said a bunch of stuff about me that actually was just fucking made up. You would get the impression, Gumaka. You would get the impression that she and I have had words. We've never interacted in any way. All that happened is she's pissed off because I pointed out something that you could find by just reading her blog and looking at her fucking public profile photos on Facebook. Namely, that she has stanned the EDL, a Nazi group in Britain, and that she has proudly participated in anti-Muslim demonstrations in Britain as well. And that pissed her off so much that she has become obsessed with me. Gunma 県ってどこだった？岐阜、群馬。大田、熊谷、宇都宮、日光、that's 栃木。魚沼、福島。秩父。秩父。大田、熊谷、栃木。知らねえや。Okay, we'll just drop it in Gumaken. This is not going to be my shining hour on GeoGuessr. 22 miles. Not too bad. Right by Maebashi. Okay, and we are almost certainly back in the US now. What gets me about those articles, okay, is if you do a reverse image search on those articles, they don't show up anywhere online. So, and they do not show up in that form on the online archives of the newspapers in question, one of which is not a newspaper anyone outside of Cincinnati would have heard of. In fact, outside of the black community in Cincinnati, most people in Cincinnati wouldn't have heard of it. So I am quite keen to know where the hell she got her. No, this is not the US. 200 meters, 200 meters. So I am very keen to know how she got her hands on that shit. In any case, the fact that she was able to come up with what are probably fairly unobtainable newspaper cuttings. Oh no, this is Brazilian. I mean, well, it's Portuguese. What I want to know is who she got them from. Because it would almost certainly have to have been somebody who kept them. And if it was somebody who kept them, it was almost certainly somebody who for some reason was interested in me, which means almost certainly it's somebody I know, or knew at one point, and probably had no idea what they were doing. Oh, Kolditz! There was an escape at a Young Offenders Institute. Veículos leves, veículos pesados. Okay, either Brazil or Portugal. Statistically, probably Brazil, because Brazil is massive. And during the inquiry after the escape, one of the contributing factors they identified is that they had showed Kolditz the night before the escape. These are things that one learns from Mark Steele. If you want some really good value, some of the better stuff that British TV has come up with, Mark Steele, the Mark Steele lectures. Look for that. They are incredible. He is ex-SWP. He's done some really good explainers on like Marxism as well. That he did on national television as well, and also were quite funny. And you can probably find all that shit on YouTube as well. But if you look for Mark Steele Portland, Mark Steele's in town Portland, you'll hear the story of this escape that was apparently contributed to by watching Kolditz. It's a fucking billboard. Fundição limitada. Indústria de autopeças. Okay. I never get to speak Portuguese. It is such a fun language to pronounce. If you wanna do damage to your ears, look up Glenn Greenwald speaking Portuguese. It is hard to listen to. It's painful. Oh, Patrick Troughton, one of the Doctor Who's. Hey, did you know that Tom Baker wrote a book? A little novella? It's called The Boy Who Kicked Pigs. They tell you Elohim? There's a fucking confectionery named the one of the Hebrew words for God? Okay, that can't possibly be a Jewish bakery because nobody Jewish would ever fucking name a bakery that. But I mean, I have to know this story. Yeah. Come on, Brazil. And I'm guessing this is going to be in one of the major urban provinces. I'm going to say like São Paulo. States, I mean, not provinces. São Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. One of those, because just looking at this infrastructure, this isn't the middle of nowhere. Oh, hold on, there was a sign there. Oh, it just says the way to turn around. Yeah, I was just there was just a radical book jumble sale in Cardiff a few years ago, and somebody was selling The Boy Who Kicked Pigs by Tom Baker. The Tom Baker, who apparently also used to be a monk, and was most recently quoted in the press as saying that he would like to kick David Cameron in the bollocks. He's an interesting guy. And when you find out, did you know who the script editor was on those Doctor Who episodes? Guess, if you don't know. Like, who would be an absolutely amazing script editor that would totally explain the absurdism? Restaurante retorno a 5 minutos. That would totally fit in with the absurdist vibe of the Tom Baker years. Capella Santa Lucia. Douglas Adams was the script editor. Hitchhiker's Guide Douglas Adams. There was a thing on BBC 4, on Radio 4, like a few years ago, and I just randomly caught it. I bet you could probably find that on iPlayer or YouTube or something. But, I mean, they did interviews and stuff. Apparently, Tom Baker and Douglas Adams got on like a house on fire. They just totally had the same kind of ideas about where the stories should go. And it was a really good working relationship. And I have to say, it easily produced some of the absolute best Doctor Who. Like, occasionally, the current Doctor Who has gotten into, like, some socially critical stories. Like, there's one where it's, like, a giant Amazon-type warehouse. And in the Douglas Adams days, the solution would end up being, you know, Doctor Who would say, okay, you just have to fundamentally change the system of yours. You know, that tended to be what he ends up saying at the end of the episodes of all those. But in this one, it turns out, actually, all the deaths that Doctor Who's investigating are being caused by an anti-fake Amazon activist who wants to draw attention to how horrible the place is. And it seemed like it was just tacked on at the end to me, because the first half of it was how depressing it was. So, you know, the whole premise was the life for people working there was so depressing that just getting a fucking package from nobody in particular was the highlight of their lives. And you know, and then all of a sudden it turns out the end is, oh no, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with any of this. Okay, there's going to be a tool plaza? Is that what it's called? A toll plaza? That sounds so ridiculous. Like, it sounds like they should offer you a Singapore sling. But, and you know, they just completely walk that entire angle of it back. Whereas in the Douglas Adams, Tom Baker days, they would just fucking ride right into it in the most absurdist fashion possible. I mean, it was such a Hillary Clinton ending. America is already great sort of bullshit. Oh, come on. Give me something here. Okay, this is like the worst couple of maps that I've had in ages. 736 miles. Next round. Okay, this is the last one. I think we're on Mars. We're on some kind of slag heap. Okay, there's literally fuck all here. This is like, did somebody, like, is there a hard mode that I've accidentally triggered where they just give you nondescript wastelands and long stretches of road with no signposting? Jesus, look at this. This isn't a fucking place. This is where you go to fucking dispose of a body. Oh, or jog, apparently. You also jog there. Oh, okay. Now it's pretty all of a sudden. You add water to this horrible landscape and suddenly it's pretty. Water's useful that way. Oh, and there's some neat little cliffs there. Still. Okay. Electrical substation-y thing. Mary, God, what was her thing about Doctor Who? Maybe it was. Oh, well, yes, of course. Pertwee sounds like a ratio. How many Johns Pertwee? Oh, come on, give me something more than this. It's fucking gravel next to water. Oh. It could very well be. I've never heard it pronounced. Let's see. If we include countries I've only briefly, like, stopped over in. Let's see, we got, okay, US, Canada, Panama, Colombia, Chile, Peru, Argentina, Japan, okay, Ireland, Britain, Norway, Sweden, Finland. Finland's kind of cool. I like Finland. Fun language. Let's see. Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, any others there? No, I think that covers it. Did I say Japan already? It's a place I'd really like to get back to. I haven't been there since '95. And apparently it's affordable now. When I was there, it was amazingly expensive. So I didn't actually add up how many countries that is. You gotta be kidding me. This is all they're giving me to go on? Some rocks? And some water? This is what the fuck? This is, they're taking the piss here. Okay. What are the national, okay, let us apply the national question to this, waterfront slag heap. Okay, it's someplace... Fuck, I don't know. Fuck. And where? Shit, you know, that t-shirt idea could have worked. Because there's only one country in the world where there would be a likelihood of seeing Hebrew on t-shirts. Mitzpe Ramon. Never heard of it. Okay. And you are now a tourist. Well done, you've gained it. They didn't have these titles. Oh, wow. Wow, that sucked. That was easily one of my worst results, but, I mean, considering what I was given to work with there? Wow. Actually, you know what Mars looks a lot like? The north of Chile. The desert in the north of Chile. When they started releasing the color footage from the Mars rover, it looks like the Atacama Desert. On the other hand, the rest of Chile looks just... California and Chile, topographically, look identical. Okay, we're going to move back to Foch and Zanderhole. Let's see if we can... They didn't used to have ranks.
Luna, if you think that Luna deserves to suffer, do you think Luna deserves to suffer? Is that your point here? By being attacked by racists? Is that what you're saying?
You're the one who said that it was bad because a person suffered. So logically, I extend from that. You think when suffering is bad.
Jesus Christ, look at this.
Did I correctly?
Amoral bullshit. Like... Oh, I mean, what he's doing here is trying to be, like, apply the Socratic method to, just as a technique of being an asshole.
Predict what he's about to do?
How's the, can you hear the video, the audio from the video at all? Is that okay?
Or what he was trying to do? Listen, I'm telling you guys, I'm Bruno.
That Luna suffered because racists sent racist vitriol at her.
I'm asking you your positions. Why was it bad?
I would say
Jesus Christ. It's a simple fucking question. Should she have to suffer from racist assholes harassing her? And the obvious answer for any person who isn't just an absolute fucking rectal polyp of a human being is no, obviously not.
It's definitely bad because it's promoting.
No, Socrates was based in the end. I mean, he took the fucking hemlock.
The racist system of white supremacism, which oppresses billions of people around the planet.
Why is that bad?
Why is white supremacism bad? That's kind of mask off of you, Foch.
It is bad because we should seek to liberate all of humanity
from oppression. I was spoiling the shit out of
Canto
10 minutes ago,
Pillow. So the main point of Marx and Engels is to you realize that the main point of dialectical materialism and historical materialism is to free humanity from all class antagonisms so that we can finally begin writing history ourselves. That's basically the way that they put it.
Why did they think that was worth doing?
What the fuck? I mean, now he's like the fucking adjunct to the adjunct in the undergraduate philosophy seminar that you hope you don't get. God, he is just...
Yeah, Pillow.
He is so smackable.
Oh, you missed the Encanto talk.
Throughout modern history, or throughout history since class antagonisms arose, let's put it that way, human beings have been driven forward by oppressive relations with the means of production. And that limits humans, and it causes a lot of suffering.
And I understand these terms. You already said suffering can be good or bad. Limiting? What makes these things bad? I don't understand.
Okay.
God, Jesus Christ. Just say that it's bad for racists to harass people on the internet, Vosh. You claim that you're not responsible for it. One way to prove that would be to say that you don't think it's a good thing.
Limiting oppression, giving people the ability to develop their own material conditions and to have the freedom to do what they want. That's what they talked about in
Why should people have freedom? Should people have...
It was just, Jesus, shut the I mean, all he's doing here is figuring out... I mean, he's doing an Ari Fleischer. Because Ari Fleischer's thing, back when he was head of propaganda for Bush, was Bush 2, was he would come up with the rebuttal, the denial or whatever, that would throw people off balance the most. You know, there was a thing that they would be expecting Bush's propaganda guy to deny or to lie about, and they'd be prepared, and the press would be prepared to say, yeah, that isn't true. But so he would just go off and deny something that nobody was expecting to have to back up because it was so obvious.
Have freedom to murder?
Vosh,
God.
Freedom to live. It
would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. This is such ridiculous shit. And this is why this debate bro bullshit, there's absolutely no reason to engage with it. Oh, sounds like you must have gotten tangled into something. Hate it when that happens. Hopefully it wasn't too painful. Speaking of suffering. Yeah, now... Oh,
nice to have an ethical system you could...
this is why it's just so pointless to engage with this debate bro bullshit. Because all he's doing here, I mean, to put it in chess terms, he's just like preparing to browbeat people with prep. He just has a list of things in his head that he can use to throw people off balance, and there's basically, unless you are like the fucking Magnus Carlsen of debate bro bullshit, and you can actually foresee these random ass moves and 15 minutes ahead, you're gonna end up falling over your tongue at some point. Not because you don't have a better point, not because Foch or Sanderhol is somehow saying something valid, but because you have been... Oh, go right ahead. I mean, but because you have been taken so far out of what you were expecting. You've had so many things that you had every reason to believe were common ground denied or challenged or distorted in weird, unexpected ways that you don't know what the fuck the conversation's about anymore. And I mean, I just don't see any reason to... There's no reason to engage with it on this level. I mean, apart from the fact that it did cause Foch to take a little bit more of the mask off.
Apply to...
Do you want to, like, hear... This is all that EJ has to say to be correct and to not come off badly.
Wait, he thinks that EJ's the one who is in danger of coming off badly when Foch can't even bring himself to say that it's a bad thing for Luna Ui to be harassed by online racists?
Well, I guess this is what... Okay. EJ could literally just say, if he was smart, that he believes that the vitriol done by Vosh's audience, even if it is not racist, is just as bad as the vitriol being spread by the Nazis and the racists in Luna Oi's comment sections.
Well, except as far as I can tell, he is trying to say that, and the point is, Foch already is the one looking bad. Foch has a very easy thing. All he has to do to just look like he's somebody who breathes air and drinks water is to say, yeah, it's fucked up that she's getting all these racist pile-ons. That shouldn't be happening. And I seriously hope to shit nobody in my audience feels encouraged to do that by anything I've said. I don't think that that's the case. But I would like to hope that isn't something that I've had anything to do with. That's all he has to say. It concedes nothing. All it does is make him look like a halfway decent person.
He could argue that both of these are effectively the same because they're all molded together into one big sort of, like, I guess, parade of people talking shit, right? Like, if you're...
Well, you see, where's the idea that, Xanderhol is trying to hold on to the idea that the racist pylon and the Foch pylon are separate things, as if there's no racism in the Foch audience. What?
You're getting, like, if, like, 30% of the people shit-talking you are saying racist shit to you, and then, like, 70% of the people that are shit-talking you aren't, well... It still kind of feels like you're getting hit by, like, a racist mob, right?
Well, yes, because you are.
It feels that way, at least.
The question is, I mean, just what everybody wants is for Xanderhol to try to empathize, okay? Because at that point, once you concede that there is a racist pylon, but you're saying it's only 30%. You're not arguing that there's no racist mob. You're arguing about the size of the racist mob, and I think you'd think that it would be okay, that it would not, like, make either of their dicks any smaller to just say racist mobs are a bad thing no matter how big they are.
And EJ could make that argument that what they're doing is more or less causing that effect for...
That's exactly what he was saying.
...person of color to feel attacked based on their their ethnicity. Now, this would make EJ at the very least sound like he has a consistent like philosophy on the situation.
See, what fucking universe do you have to be coming from that you can watch Foch find ways to avoid saying that racists, a racist social media pile-on against a Vietnamese woman is a bad thing, and think that EJ's the one who needs advice on how not to sound shitty?
But it still wouldn't be right. Vosh would still be able to shoot it down. I'd still be able to shoot it down.
Oh, yeah? Okay, let's hear it. How would you shoot it down? I mean, explain how you would argue that the racist mob is good because it's only a 30% racist mob.
But he would still be able to shoot it down. But at least EJ wouldn't look like a complete bumbling idiot. At the very least, it would look like EJ...
See, and it's interesting that this is what he thinks the worst thing you could look like in one of these debates is. Not an asshole. Not a dishonest person. Not, a racist prick. But a, bumbling ableist slur. And I find that telling because when you look at the strategies that both of these guys deploy, of course Foch is much better at it than his prepubescent Nazi sidekick, but it is about making people look silly. It's about making people trip over their tongues. It's not about getting to any kind of truth or reaching a greater understanding of a pressing issue. It's about getting people to trip over themselves with praise.
EJ has some kind of...
It's about playing gambits and hoping that the person, that if you play enough of them, you'll run into one that the person doesn't know the refutation to. That's all this is. It's gambits. Except it's gambits in the game of being an asshole instead of gambits in the game of chess where they're cool.
Consistent moral compass or moral framework that he follows
To answer these questions, right?
No, okay.
He thinks EJ's the one in danger of looking like he doesn't have any kind of moral framework. Really? What is he watching the same fucking debate?
A person
Vanderhall's better at being a woke scold than woke scolds. Kinda.
This is okay.
Oh wow, a Ben Shapiro original term right there. I mean, I totally get that he is no longer a Nazi.
Let's go back to the material conditions, all right? If you're being oppressed, right? If you're being oppressed and somebody is forcing you to work for them as a slave or a wage earner or whatever, that is a form of exploitation, okay?
Isn't that the
What
freedom?
is bad?
Jesus. Yes, this is just basic shit that, I mean, this is basic shit that he's trying to explain to Vosh here.
Excuse me?
Isn't that their freedom? You're talking about
Isn't
restricting
that
the
their
freedom of
freedom?
people to do unto others what they will.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. You're saying that you don't like...
He was never talking about the freedom to do unto others what they will. That is not the freedom he was talking about. It's telling that is the sort of freedom that immediately comes to mind for Foch, because that is the kind of freedom that he truly values. The freedom to treat people however the fuck he wants, and somehow get away with it.
like it when people exercise their freedom to oppress others. You said you value freedom.
Vosh.
If you value freedom, then you're going to oppose oppression. Because if somebody is being oppressed, they're being denied freedom. That's kind of how the freedom thing works.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, the fact of the matter is that Marx and Engels believed that exploitation through class antagonism is not
Xan
good.
was secretly a woke scold this whole
Do you
time.
I mean, God.
agree or disagree with that?
We're talking about what I agree. I think I'm a Marxist, at least in some respects.
Yeah, he thinks he is. I mean, I don't even believe that he thinks he is. I don't think that he actually has a consistent moral worldview of any kind. I think his view is whatever is going to get him views.
But I have an ethical system that informs the reasons why I feel Marxism is worth following.
And yeah, I would love to hear this ethical system because it doesn't. It's interesting how it doesn't actually ban lying, for example, which he's kind of okay with.
And what is that?
Rule utilitarianism. Or I guess some people say you can fold that into act utilitarianism. So let's just say utilitarianism.
but there's no.
This isn't a matter of idealism. It's a matter of understanding why we fight for what we fight for.
EJ seems to have had his moral framework justified by theory, rather than having the theory justified by his moral framework.
Oh, God. See, Zanderhole, who didn't even know what idealism is, that's what we were listening to. Well, yeah, utilitarianism, if you actually look at what Bentham was using as a metric for the most happiness for the most people, it was fucking money. It is very much a foundational ideology of capitalism. I mean, this is just such a liberal hot mess. But then Zanderhole traipsing in here when he only just learned what idealism is, and I don't think he still understands it, and thinking that the issue is that one of them has a moral framework justified by theory, and the other one has theory justified by a moral framework. He doesn't actually understand what's going on in this conversation, and this conversation is really fucking basic. Because if your moral framework is justified by utilitarianism, that means you have a theoretical framework that is justifying your moral framework that you're using to then justify another theoretical framework. It's theoretical frameworks all the way down. The question is how much you understand them and how well thought out they are, really. And in this case, it is a two theoretical... I need to get like a smack Foley that I can play whenever that happens. I mean, it's two mutually inconsistent moral frameworks that he clearly doesn't comprehend very much. And it all just comes down to wanting to feel superior.
Like, generally, like, I think usually at a base level, in order for someone to be a good person, especially when it comes to, like, political stuff, like, they need to have, like, a basic, decent moral compass, right? Like, good things...
like a basic, decent moral compass, like saying that people who are ex-Nazis shouldn't feel obligated to earn people's trust and proves that they are no longer members of a genocidal movement of disgusting pricks. A very self-serving view to hold when you yourself are monetizing the fact that you used to be a Nazi, Zanderhole. I'm here for it. We're gonna get lectured about basic moral principles, about ethical first principles, by the most meretricious motherfucker on this stream right now. And I'm here for it.
Good, bad things bad, right? Like, at the very least...
Actually, sorry, strike meretricious, that's actually an insult to sex workers. I shouldn't have... not a good word. Most self-serving motherfucker, we'll go with that.
They need to, like, desire some basic principles, even if they disagree on how they're achieved or whatever. At the very least, they need to agree that we should maximize the happiness of people and try to make the world a better...
So he just Wikipedia'd fucking utilitarianism. Maximize the happiness of the people. That's Bentham right there.
...place, in quotes, you know? But
yeah, literally in quotes. He's probably just reading this off of Wikipedia as he goes, because he's having to wiki every single one of these concepts, having never actually bothered to learn any of them. And see, and just to be one thing very clear, because it occurred to me that this could come off as elitist in some ways, but what I want to say is it's one thing not to have the time or the inclination to read theory, or maybe just not to be able to get into it. You know, you read it and you just have trouble understanding it, and that's one thing, and I'm not gonna shit on somebody for that. But it's another thing not to know anything about any of this shit, and then to go lecturing people on it anyway. And that is some bullshit. And when you then take people's money to lecture them about shit you very prominently do not know anything about, I mean, that's nice work if you can get it, I suppose.
Like, EJ just doesn't have that. EJ doesn't even have like a set of beliefs that he already had. I guess it seems that way, or at least.
Yeah, he had a set of beliefs that he already had. He's done like hours of fucking videos about what they are. The fact that he's tripping over his tongue in a debate with a guy whose only tactic is to get you to trip over your tongue by saying ridiculous shit that you never would have expected does not mean that he doesn't have a system of beliefs. It means that he's having trouble enunciating them in this shitball discussion.
He claims he doesn't. I doubt it's true, though. Like a set of beliefs, a set of moral principles going in that made him receptive to communist theory. Because usually, at least from what I know, most people I know that have read theory, including myself, were already...
Yeah, including himself. What fucking theory has he read? Yes, very perceptive. I'm not currently playing chess. Chess is one of the things I do in the stream. To this time, it was mostly GeoGuessr.
Interested, and we're already identified as leftists, and we're already, like, sold, and they're reading...
Yeah, turning the questions around on him actually would be a very good tactic, because the whole point of the questions is that it forces somebody else to think of something to say, when all you had to do is use a pat response.
Theory to, like... build up their knowledge and build up their rhetorical skills, being able to explain whatever socialist principle or communist principle or theory that's being discussed. Like, I don't know.
What you're
Yeah, you don't know. That's the first true statement I've heard from you.
arguing for is intuitive morality, which is exactly what leads to every goddamn pogrom and mass slaughter that's ever happened throughout history.
It's not pogrom, it's pogrom.
When people post-hoc justify what's right or wrong, only the construction of and adhere...
Yeah, including with hypotheticals. Like, I mean, this fool the other day... it was actually during this stream, but we were watching it yesterday. Was trying to explain how his moral framework is based on such practically applicable questions as... if the only way you could save the lives of all of humanity was to shoot one known innocent person, would you do it? And it's like, I mean, this is your fucking moral framework? I mean, that's a hypothetical that has more or less been created for the specific purpose of justifying shooting somebody you know to be innocent. That situation is literally never going to exist outside of those hypotheticals.
Adherence to moral systems that you can understand can prevent that kind of stuff from happening. And it's why I'm hammering on it right now. I don't like...
No, why you're hammering on it right now is that it's a way you've realized that you've hit the areas that he was not actually prepared to have an argument about because he figured that this would be an area of common ground, and you're interrupting him and jumping into the middle of his sentences and all this shit, and it's created a situation where he's outside of his prep.
Like it when you're laughing like, oh, hypotheticals, oh,
material
thinking...
conditions will dictate.
Well, and again, he's trying to make it as if DJ was criticizing the use of hypotheticals as a whole. He specifically said hypotheticals that have nothing to do with material reality.
What's acceptable or not? And the only way we have to, okay.
Like, why are you against the concept? Do you think you're smarter than, like, all of, like, ethics? Like, the whole philosophy? Like,
No,
it's like the most complicated...
So, okay. If you are... I don't know how to explain this to you. Like you have to look at history, right? That's one way to look at it. So whenever people have been enslaved, if they rise up and use violence to liberate themselves, then that is probably acceptable because they had material conditions in which violence was being... Okay, so
the Nazis?
Oh, okay, here we go. This is where we're going to start... Wait, did he just suggest that the Nazis were using violence because they were oppressed by material conditions? Okay,
rising up against the Nazis was acceptable, yes.
No. After
World
War I, the Nazis claimed that Jewish bankers were holding the country down through...
Oh, holy shit. So, okay, material... So EJ's talking material conditions. And Foch is equating that to literally just fucking telling racist lies.
And that was false consciousness because that wasn't actually happening.
How can you tell?
That was false consciousness. They constructed a moral utilitarian rule.
Oh, wait. What oh no, Xanderhole? What are you knowing the fact that your man there is about to just do a Nazism right on stream? Or are you somehow knowing the fact that EJ points out that his entire premise there is complete bullshit?
That did not align with reality.
They were not utilitarian. Wait, the Nazis were not utilitarian. Careful with that. They were very, very not utilitarian.
Depends on... Okay, that depends entirely on how you're defining the greatest number. I mean, even Bentham very clearly wasn't actually talking about the greatest good for everybody, the greatest number. Well, you can be when you have the greatest number, when you're talking about the greatest number, you can be very selective about who is included in the greatest number. And the Nazis were really, really fucking selective about who was included in the greatest number. So, yeah, I mean, you could argue that there was a certain opportunistic utilitarianism to what passed for their philosophy. There was something, you could argue that they were manipulating the concept, yes. But...
the point is that their ideology was not aligned with reality.
How can you tell?
How can you tell? Because they fucking... This is not a hard question. How can you tell? How can you tell that the Nazis were lying? Well, because there are facts, and you can look them up. And we've had... Let's see, when did the Nazis, as we know them, were founded? 1923. So, we're almost coming on the 100th anniversary of their bullshit. We've had a long time to check it out, and yeah, it turns out to be bullshit, Vosh. I'm surprised that you...
Because Jews don't actually control banks in the world.
There was a disproportionate number of Jewish control of banks in Germany.
This is actually not true. I mean, this is not true on multiple levels. First of all, the figure that the Nazis and Nazi sympathizers use requires people to misunderstand what a private bank is. People think private bank means a bank in private ownership as opposed to a state-owned bank. A private bank is not that. It is a small wealth management operation for rich people. They have a tiny market share because all they do is just manage the assets of really rich motherfuckers, and they only have a handful of clients. Yeah, exactly. That's the other reason I was getting to that. Jews were not just disproportionately poor, they were like one of the poorest ethnic groups in all of Europe at the time. I mean, talking about Jews controlling the banks is ridiculous, because during this time, Jews were so fucking broke that most of them didn't have bank accounts, let alone own a fucking bank. I mean, Jews did not recover from the Great Depression. They were like the one group. I mean, Romani people probably also did not recover from the Great Depression. I don't know the specifics on there, but I would imagine if there's anyone who was worse off than Jews in Europe at the time, economically, it would probably be them. But, I mean, they didn't recover from the Depression. Right at the time when the rest of Europe was starting to recover, things got way worse because Hitler took over and started fucking up their shit. So this whole thing, I mean, it's a lie on two levels. It's a lie... I mean, in the literal way that Jews did not disproportionately control the banks. It is also a lie in the idea that Jews were supposedly all well off. And this is a problem with Holocaust education as well, I have to say. And it's Holocaust Memorial Day was just the other day, so it's worth pointing this out. Because so much Holocaust literature, Holocaust film, Holocaust education deals with the handful of Jews in Germany and Europe who were well off. The Tietzes, the Wertheims, the Schragenheims, the well-off Jews who were then proletarianized by the anti-Semitic laws that the Nazis imposed. And it creates the impression that the one thing the Nazis kind of had a point about was that Jews were actually kind of well off, and that's just such bullshit. There's just so little attention paid to working class Jews and what they went through and how they dealt with it at the time. It's almost always about Jews with money having their shit taken away and then, getting murdered or maybe being lucky enough to escape. And that makes this kind of bullshit possible.
During the Weimar Republic.
All right, Gosh, we're done here. Thank you. Good.
Okay, Xanderhol, this is your time to show that you're an ex-Nazi. Yeah, the one thing you've got to say if you want to salvage yourself and prove that you genuinely aren't that thing anymore, is, holy shit, Vosh, that was fucked up. What the hell were you thinking? That is such bullshit. Or words to that effect. Let's see if he does it. Let's see if he manages to make the conversion. Go on. I'm rooting for you.
Oh my god, what a pussy.
Goodbye.
What the fuck? See, this was just like last week. This was just last week or so. This is, in fact, the internet webs have been puking up new Zanderhol and Foch content around this stream. In fact, at one point, Foch and co started putting around a clipped version of some remarks from EJ following this debate to imply that he was the one that said that the Jews controlled the fucking economy. They clipped it together and then just put it around. This was like last week. This was like just last week. This is very recent. This whole thing just blew up last week. I mean, Foch, after this, turns around, creates a fake video claiming that EJ was the one to spew Nazi propaganda that Foch spewed and defended and has now tripled down on.
Hi, this is, that's all I need to hear.
You don't have an ethical... Oh my god.
Wait, he rage quitted oh my god, that was his only out. It's actually good that he took that out.
Wait, okay, so you're not going to say anything about the fact that your boy there said some literal Nazi propaganda?
Because there was no, like, it might have been completely career-ending if it went on, like, even...
Yeah, wait, it would have been completely career-ending for him to point out that Vosh is literally talking Nazi racist talking points here?
If it had gone on a second further, it would be fucking career-ending for him, because it was about to be tough for our boy there.
It was going to be tough? Why, exactly? What was the tough thing?
Now, I'm not a fucking idiot, so I'm going to go ahead and, like, tell you what that interaction was supposed to be. So...
Oh, wait, okay, so is this where you're going to say that actually, yes, obviously what Foch said is Nazi bullshit, and as a good, genuine ex-Nazi who isn't taking people despite taking people's money, despite not actually being that thing, yeah, you recognize that that is a Nazi lie that Vosh just said. Go on. We're rooting for you here. We've only got 1 minute left in the stream tonight, but let's hear you say it. Come on.
The idea is, EJ doesn't believe that the Nazi claim, that the claim that Nazis make, that, Jewish people have a disproportionate control of banks, especially, back in Germany, that he's claiming that claim wasn't true.
And it wasn't. It's a complete lie. This is not something that needs to be looked into now. It was looked into at the time. It's a fucking lie.
Here's the thing. It is true.
Ooh, wow. That's not how you ex-Nazi, Zanderhol.
It is true that Jewish people, had a disproportionate amount of involvement in banking.
Okay. See, I'm gonna level with you. I did not exactly expect him to acquit himself honorably as befits a true former Nazi who has seen the light. I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't expecting him to double down quite like this. Oh god, it's gonna be hard for me to decide which bit of this I clip first. Because this is just him going totally mask off. He has no right to claim to be an ex-Nazi after this. Because this is just literal Nazi shit. And it is one of the first things that you should learn is bullshit in the process of becoming an ex-Nazi. He is just monetizing the fact that he has found a new way to be fash. Okay, and with that, it is 1:01, so we're gonna call it a night, but at least we finally got to this. I've been waiting till we got to this point for a while. But, yeah, oof. Oompa fucking loompa. So, good, yes, yeah, very smooth scrote. What did I just say that? Anyway, I will be back Friday night at 11:30 Eastern Time till 1 a.m. I look forward to seeing you. Thanks for coming. And I have a Patreon if anyone watching this ever decides that they just are getting sick of having so much money and they would just like to throw some at me to support the stream. I would always enjoy that. So have a good night. And if you see Xanderhall, one thing I would like you very much not to do is smack him in the face. So try not to do that. Try not to do that. I know it'll be hard to resist. Good night. Night, James. Night, Mask of the Red Death. Night, Phoenix Rising. Good night, Moon.